Coming up on today's Families Matter Most podcast.
When you feel guilty, it's not about the other person. It's 100% about you. Nobody can make you feel guilty. Nobody can make you feel anything. Something can feel 100% true to us and yet not be true at all.
Every time Jen Dean speaks, I can see hope, knowledge, expertise, wisdom, and love.
When Jen Dean speaks about parenting, we make sure that we are there to listen because we know we will get valuable advice.
Families Matter Most with Jen Dean.
She doesn't just give skills for us to be better parents, but she teaches us how to reach our children's hearts. And at the end of the day, that's what truly matters.
Welcome back to the Families Matter Most podcast. I'm Jen Dean. I'm your coach. I'm your family coach, your parenting coach, your health and wellness coach. I want to help you be successful this year, reach all your goals, reach the hearts of your kids. Can you tell? I'm excited. I'm a little excited today. Thank you so much, Connexus. Let's talk about money. How about banking? Does money spark joy in your life or cause you stress? If you said stress, you're not alone. For 42% of Canadians, their biggest stressor comes from money. Is that you? Would you say it's your biggest stressor? At Connexus, they care about your financial well-being. Money doesn't have to be stressful, and Connexus is here to help. The Connexus Money Talk blog provides expert advice, tips, and solutions for all life stages and events. So, getting married, buying a house, budgeting, saving for a trip, wouldn't that be a dream? They cover it all and more. Did I mention it's free? Check it out today at connexusmoneytalk.ca and start feeling confident and stress-free about your money. Okay, today we're going to talk about a case study. We're going to go through a real example. I've changed names, so none of my clients, don't worry. We're not talking about you. I've changed names. Here's a case study. Let's call this client Rebecca, okay? This is a true story. This is an issue that has happened. Rebecca felt guilty all the time. All the time. She was like consumed with feeling just guilt and shame and guilt. Is that you? Do you struggle with that? Well, Rebecca, she lived in it. She felt hopeless to change. She felt like a failure in life as a parent, as a wife. She felt like she was ruining everything around her. She felt like she was ruining her kids, ruining her relationships. She felt like everything was going wrong. It was all her fault. She was a failure. She was guilty. And I know that sounds harsh, but my clients spend a lot of time on these kinds of things because they affect how you live your life. They affect how you parent, how you talk to your husband, how you get up in the morning. Is this you? Do you struggle with this? I don't want that for you. There is so much better. There's so much more for you than this. So Rebecca's mother, this is where some of it was coming from. Rebecca's mother wanted her to act a certain way. Rebecca's mother had stayed at home and raised a bunch of kids, and she'd done it all on her own, and her husband was a farmer, and he was gone all the time, and she did it. So why can't anyone else, right? So she did it. She did it with no help at all. So it was hard for Rebecca to ask her mom for help. It was hard to say, hey, Mom, can you come over and watch the kids so I can have a nap? She couldn't do that. She felt like her mom couldn't do it. Therefore, she couldn't do it. She couldn't ask for help. She couldn't ask for her to watch the kids or take the kids overnight or for a weekend so she could get away. She felt like she could only ask for help if it was a necessity, like a doctor's appointment or like, if she had surgery or something that was necessity that absolutely had to happen. She felt like she could never ask anyone just, to go for coffee or read a book. No, that was just unheard of. So Rebecca felt that way from her mother. Rebecca also felt guilty about her kids. She felt like it was unfair and selfish of her to leave her kids for any reason. She felt like she couldn't, even going to get groceries, if she had, if she left the baby at home, then it would be hard because the baby or the toddler would be fussing, or the kids wanted her at bedtime. The kids wanted her to lay down with them. And it was a real struggle because Rebecca was feeling like, do I ever get anything for myself ever again in my life? And I'm kind of over dramatizing that, but kind of not. Do you remember feeling that way? Maybe you feel that way right now. Her husband also kind of made her feel guilty too, because her husband wasn't comfortable being home with the kids on his own. He didn't feel confident in putting the kids to bed or looking after them completely or taking care of a toddler or a baby in particular. He just didn't feel like he had the skills. So he was very cautious and hesitant in trying to convince her, no, don't go out, don't run errands, don't get groceries, don't go to this event, don't go out with your friends, because what if the baby cries? What if the baby doesn't stop crying? And I don't know what to do, and it will just be so hard. So can you just come home quickly, soon, now? In fact, maybe just don't go. Is this hitting home? Are you Rebecca? Is that you? Rebecca felt guilty about everything. She was stuck in people pleasing. So we're going to talk about people pleasing today. These are some real life scenarios. It's not just cut and dry, right? There are real people that kind of want you to not do those things. Rebecca was thinking about maybe taking a class or going and getting a gym membership or doing something for her, maybe going for coffee with a friend without a baby or a toddler in tow. And she just felt guilty about even having that desire. How dare she? Because clearly her children need her, and her mother thinks that, it's useless and it's a luxury she didn't have, and husband is not so willing to do it and kind of makes her feel guilty. So she just doesn't deserve it. She's just not worth any time for herself, and she should just give up. And so she felt guilty for wanting those things. I got some points here. Now, this is just a short podcast. Let me just say, if you are Rebecca, book a session, because we need to work through some of these things. I want you to have some things for yourself, but it's not as simple as just waving a wand and being like, okay, here you go to the gym. There's going to be fallout. We have to learn how to navigate all these things, and particularly those negative thoughts in our head, those thoughts that say, see, you're not good enough. And I can't believe you're that selfish that you would put your desires ahead of fill in the blank, ahead of your mother or your husband or your kids or your job or your whatever it is. We tend to always put ourselves last. Is that where we deserve to be? At the very end of the list, the neighbor, the random person online that asks for help. We're going to go at the very end. We're at the bottom of the pile. People pleasing. It is a big deal. But in this podcast, I'm just going to share some things that I think will give you something to think about. And I think even from this podcast, it can be a positive step forward for you in making this year count. Because you can't just expect that now in a new year, you're going to just add in more things. Like now, in addition to everything that's going on in your life, you're going to meet all these goals, and you're going to have these health goals or these financial goals or whatever it is. Like, when is it going to happen? Where is it going to happen? It needs to come from somewhere. And this is a common thing. We decide, we're going to take care of ourselves. We're going to exercise. We're going to meal plan. We're going to make a salad for lunch. Okay, so when are you going to do that? If you feel guilty for leaving your kids to play by themselves, it's going to be really hard to walk away from them to chop those veggies. It's going to be really hard to get up and go to the gym in the morning when you know your kids are going to be upset because they want you there instead. It's going to be hard for you to ask your mom to babysit, a couple of times a week so that you can reach these goals, particularly if she's rolling her eyes or making comments. This is real life. But I think in this podcast, this will be a good place to start, something for you to consider. And if nothing else, I want you to hear me say that you are worth it, that you matter, you count, and you have dreams and desires too. And you are not the center of the universe. Don't get me wrong, but you are not the lowest of the low either. You count, you matter. And I want to find a way to have a healthy rhythm in your life so you can make some progress towards realistic goals. That's what I would say. Healthy progress towards realistic goals. That's what I'd like to help you with. Let's talk about feeling guilty. When you feel guilty, it's not about the other person. When you feel guilty, it's 100% about you. Nobody, now hear me say this, nobody can make you feel guilty. We say that all the time. So-and-so made me feel guilty. You made me feel guilty. Nobody can make you feel anything. You choose it. Your brain decides what it means. You decide what something means. Someone can make a comment. Maybe they're just cranky. Maybe it came out wrong. It came out harsh and it shouldn't have. Maybe they're feeling insecure. Maybe your husband's insecurity about taking care of a baby is actually nothing to do with you, and it's all about him feeling not good enough as a parent. And so he makes a comment that maybe you could stay home. Your brain decided it meant that you weren't worthy, you weren't good enough, you were selfish, you don't deserve to ask for anything for yourself. Your brain decided that. Likely, your husband did not say that. Your brain decides what it means. And the good news in this is with coaching, with practice, with help, your brain can choose something different. So if your husband makes a comment like, oh, you're going out again? Instead of your brain making it mean like, oh, he thinks I'm so selfish. He thinks that I shouldn't go. He thinks I don't deserve this. I'm not worthy. If he doesn't even believe in me, then what am I doing even trying? I should just give up, right? Notice it was your brain that went there. Instead, you could have decided something different. Your brain could have chose, for example, that it means, oh, my husband's a little bit nervous about putting the baby to bed. My husband's tired and he's afraid he's going to lose his temper on the kids and be more harsh than he should. How can I encourage him? How can I let him know that he's going to do great? You know what? It is hard to parent when you're tired, but it's something we all work through. And I know he's going to do it and he's going to find a way to connect with the kids, and he and the baby are going to figure it out. They will figure it out the easy way or the hard way. They will figure it out together. And this is actually going to help their relationship. So I'm going to just, pop out and come right back, and it's going to be better than we even thought. And I'm going to encourage him through this. Notice your brain could choose that. I know it sounds insane to consider, but something can feel 100% true to us and yet not be true at all. Our brain decides what it means. Our brain can change its mind. We can change our mind about it. We spend a lot of time talking about boundaries. Boundaries is probably a whole other podcast. It's one thing to put up the boundary. We talk about boundaries. And here, okay, quick definition. I should define a boundary. A boundary is a rule that you put in place about you. You cannot, this is where I got it wrong for a long time. You can't make a boundary about other people. You can't say, you can't talk to me that way, because I can't control what someone else says. That's not really a great boundary. All I can control is me. So instead of saying, you can't talk to me that way, that's not really a boundary. A boundary would be saying, if you talk to me that way, this is how I'm going to respond. This is what I will do. This is what I will not do. This is what I will accept. If you choose to do this, this is going to be my response. That's a boundary. If you choose to make negative comments about me leaving, then I'm still going to leave, but it means we're going to have an argument or a fight when we get back, because it's not okay for you to take out your fear, your insecurities on me. That's not okay. You can be scared. You can be insecure. You can be nervous, but you can't call me every 5 minutes telling me that the baby's crying and I should come home. That's not okay. I need this time. And if you continue to call me for this hour, I'm not bringing my phone. That would be a boundary. I can't control what someone else does, but I can control how I respond and what I do. And there is a way to do it that is calm, that is almost classy. There's a way to do it where it's not rude. It's just saying, this is what I need. I need this time. I need this hour to myself, and I'm going to start turning my phone off because it's not helpful. You guys are going to figure it out. And your relationship is going to grow. It's going to be strong. This is going to be good for you. So that's a boundary. It's one thing, though, to enact the boundary. It's hard enough, okay? It's hard already to have that conversation and to put that boundary in place. But then it's a whole other issue upholding it. You decide you're not going to go for Sunday dinner at your mother's house anymore. You used to go every Sunday. So Rebecca would go every Sunday. Her and the family would go for Sunday dinner. But she felt like, you know what? It's stressful for us. The kids aren't in a good place. We get them to bed late. Our Monday morning is a bit of a wreck then. My husband and I feel like we haven't really had any time just for us because we're busy other times in the weekend. So we're going to set up a boundary that we're not going to go every week. Maybe it's once a month, maybe it's twice a month, but we're not going to go every week. So you go ahead and you call mom and you tell her that. And then what? What does she make a sarcastic comment? Oh, I guess you don't really care. I guess nobody cares about me. I guess now, once I get old, nobody cares anymore. Is she going to get angry? Well, fine then. Is she going to be sarcastic? Is she going to be rude? Is she going to cry? How is she going to respond when you enact this boundary? And then you have to uphold it. So none of this is simple. None of this is easy. You decide that you're a terrible daughter. You feel guilty. And you would say, she made me feel guilty. Well, let's remember, nobody makes you feel guilty. You chose to feel guilty when she responded negatively to your boundary. And you could choose something else. My mother is clearly upset, and that is too bad. And, it's not my intention to hurt her, but I would rather spend once a month or twice a month with her in a positive way that's not going to hurt our family, that's going to be uplifting to her, and it's going to be honest. I'm going to talk about that some more. It's going to be honest. Another example, you decide to buy that gym membership, but then your child cries the whole time you're gone. Okay, so who decides then that you're a horrible mom? Have you ever done that? I'm a horrible mother. I can't believe I put this HIIT class ahead of my daughter. I'm a horrible parent. Who decides that? Who made you feel guilty, right? Nobody. You did. You chose to feel guilty. And another thing to ponder, people pleasing is manipulation. If you choose to do something just to please your mom or your partner, if you're making decisions about your own life just to avoid ticking people off, hurting someone's feelings, if you're doing something that you definitely do not want to do just because of people pleasing, I need to tell you something. That is manipulation. Really, it is. That's what it is. It's not about you. You are behaving in a certain way to make people like you. That's what you're doing. What does it mean to you if someone is upset with you? What does it mean to you if your mom is upset or hurt, or your partner is upset and disagrees with your decision? What does that mean to you? You've decided it means you're a terrible daughter, you're a horrible human, you're a bad spouse. You've decided that you're the worst parent that ever lived because you did this thing. You've decided that. And if you change your behavior just to make people like you, that is kind of by definition manipulation. So let's decide to be honest. Let's decide that honest is better. Clear is kind. What are we afraid of? What are we afraid of, really? If someone doesn't like us, what does that mean to us? Does it mean they're not going to love us anymore? They only love me if they approve of everything I'm doing. Is it true? Do you think that your partner only loves you if you do what they say? Do you think your mother only loves you if you do everything she suggests? Is that really what you think? Like, it's interesting how we make these decisions in our head, but we don't follow it through. What if people are disappointed in you? Can they love you and still be disappointed? Yes. And isn't that kind of what being human and doing life with other people is? I mean, I have a partner. He is my teammate, but we are different. We don't make the same decisions. We don't do everything exactly the same. And his decision isn't directly out to hurt me. He's just making a different decision. It's not personal. He's doing what he needs and I'm doing what I need. And I want to support him. And likewise, I know Sean wants to support me. And this is how it should be. But of course, our emotions, our past, our issues, they all get intertwined in this. People pleasing isn't honest. And I'd rather think about your friends, think about your relationships. Would you really want someone spending time with you if you knew they were like, I really don't have time for this. I don't want to go for coffee with this person. I've got so much to do. I shouldn't have said yes, but they're going to do it anyway, even though they didn't want to. Is that what you want? No, I'm certain that you would say, no, that's not what I want. I actually would prefer if my friend said, oh, you know what? I'm so sorry. My schedule's out of control. I made some terrible decisions. I shouldn't have agreed to this. Can we do something else instead? You would much rather that, as would I. And so that's what we had to work on with Rebecca, is seeing that her people pleasing was manipulation, that her guilt was her choice, and that it wasn't productive, that she wasn't last on the list, that it was okay for her to want some things. It was okay for her to want a healthy rhythm. It was okay for her to want some things in her life that she was working towards, some goals for herself. That was okay. It did not mean that she was being selfish, right? And she was the center of the universe. It didn't mean any of those things. Helping Rebecca walk those things out and see that it made her a better person. It made her better for those people. And we want honest relationships. I know that's what you want too. Rebecca wanted that. So having these kinds of conversations helped her to solidify in her own heart, in her mind, that boundaries was a good thing, that it was okay to want some things for herself. It was okay to make some decisions that not everyone would understand, maybe not everyone would like, that it was okay. She left her husband and the baby at home and she went to the gym, or it was once a week. She left them at home, or sometimes she'd go for coffee with a friend. And you know what? The first few weeks were rough. I won't lie. First few weeks, husband had a real hard time with baby. But by week 4, they had a bit of a groove. They had a bit of a bond that was going on. He had his own way. He had his own system. He figured out what worked for him and his child. And they can look back on it, and it was a very positive thing for them. It was really good for them to figure this out. And now they have this special bond, and husband has more confidence. Interestingly, once he gained the confidence to feel like a capable father, he didn't have an issue with mom going. It was fear. Fear was his issue as well. So I know you would rather that too. Rebecca found a way to do it well. I've helped so many other clients with this. I want you to work on this too. Which aspect of this are you stuck in? Are you stuck in feeling guilty? Are you stuck in people pleasing? Do you recognize it as manipulation? Do you recognize that it's your brain that decides what something means, and it could mean something else? You could decide, you could choose to let your brain make a different decision. Does that feel true to you? Are you willing? Are you willing to look at that? How are you at setting the boundary? Because now we have to uphold the boundary. And this one is harder for me. I can get myself in the right frame of mind. I can kind of coach myself, just like I'm doing with you. I can coach my own self to set the boundary, to communicate the boundary. I can do it. But the harder part for me is to uphold the boundary. It seems like I'm always caught off guard, right? I'm never ready when someone makes a comment or there's a request or something. So that was a whole other session with Rebecca, helping her walk it out then. She sets the boundary. She explains to her mom, this is how Sunday dinners are going to go. But then there's the fallout. Mom's upset. Mom's disappointed. Then Rebecca has all of those thoughts. I'm a horrible daughter. I can't believe a daughter would do that to her own mother. What kind of disrespectful, dishonoring daughter wouldn't even go for dinner on Sunday nights? I'm the worst child that ever lived. No wonder my kids disrespect me. I realize I'm going on here, but let's be honest. This is where our brain can go. So then we had to have a whole session on working through that. How do we uphold it even in the midst of disappointment? How do we decide, you know what, this is important and it's going to be okay. And I'm sorry you're disappointed in this decision, but we're making it anyway. It's harder for me because I'm always caught off guard. I'm never ready for a comment, sarcastic something. I don't know. It's more of a challenge for me. I don't know what it is for you, but that's how it is for me. I'll have a conversation and, maybe I'll get off the phone and afterwards I'll be like, oh, what did I just agree to? I just agreed. I committed to something and now I feel sick about it. I've just said I would go somewhere or I would do something. And immediately in my gut, I know it was a bad idea. I shouldn't have said that. Why did I say that? Oh, because I felt guilty. Because there was a comment about how I never see this person anymore and how, they thought that we would do this thing together and it would mean so much to them. And I just committed because I felt guilty. Now, notice they didn't make me feel guilty. I chose to feel guilty. Immediately, I knew it was a bad idea. I knew I should have said no. I cannot do this thing. Why did I say I would do this thing? So with Rebecca, we had to work through that. We had to work through the backhanded kind of comments or the frustration or the sarcasm or just those little jabs that people could say that our brain takes as, see, this is why you're a horrible human being. Here's a couple of hacks. One pro hack is to never commit to anything right away. This one has saved me so many times. Just don't commit to anything right away ever again. Say things like, oh, well, that sounds fun, or that sounds great or interesting. I need to think about it. I need to pray about it. I need to check my calendar. I need to talk to my partner. Whatever it is, don't ever commit to anything right away. Give yourself a little bit of time, particularly if you struggle with people pleasing. Give yourself a bit of time to kind of check in with yourself, to talk to your partner, to look at your calendar and say, okay, is this going to fit for me? Is this going to work in our family? So then you can make a better decision and then you can go back and say, I'm sorry, it just won't work. It just can't work this time. Unfortunately, I can't commit. Another hack is, I don't know if this is a hack. I don't know what to call this. Just immediately call and own it. Immediately. Don't put it off till the last minute. I've done that. That is generally not great. That is not cool. I have done that. Don't do that. Don't put it off till the last minute. But if you immediately, after agreeing to do something, you know already this is going to go badly, this is not good, I should not have said yes to this thing, then as soon as possible, immediately call back and own it. Just own it. We've all done it. Just own it. Say something like, hey, I'm so sorry. I was wrong to commit to this. I got sucked into the fun of it and I was excited to see you and I thought it could work, but I didn't take other areas of life into account. I can't commit to this. It's not going to work. I am so sorry. Please forgive me. Just do it immediately. Just do it. Just do it right away. Right away. Just own it and say, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have done that. Is this helpful? Because it's one thing to talk about setting boundaries. It's one thing to talk about people pleasing. But there's so much more to it. I mean, we could get into the root of people pleasing. Where does it come from? Those are sessions, man. Those are like, why do I feel like I need to please this person? Why do I feel like I'm a failure? Why do I feel like a good mom always keeps her kids happy? A good mom never leaves the house and lets them cry. Like, why? Those things that we have in our head, where did they come from? And can we dismantle them little by little, take them apart and make something new? Can we change our mind about those things? It's true, but it takes time. Are you guilty? Are you guilty? Do you feel guilty a lot? So here's the thing. Like, do you feel guilty because of a specific thing? I will say, feeling guilty isn't always a bad thing. If you do something wrong and you feel guilty, maybe that's not terrible, right? Maybe it's okay to feel bad when you've done something wrong. What I'm talking about is that mom guilt or dad guilt that says that you're a failure. So feeling guilty for screwing up is one thing, but feeling guilty for being a failure is another. If you can think about what exactly you feel guilty for. So think about something, an area of your life that you feel guilty about. Is there an area you feel guilty about? And if so, I'm going to ask you, okay, what specifically are you guilty in? What are you guilty of? Are you guilty of being late for this meeting? I'm late to this meeting again. That's something to realistically feel badly about. You can apologize for that. I'm so sorry that I'm late to this meeting. You can do that versus people are always mad at me and I'm guilty. How do you apologize for that? Right? One of them is taking ownership of a mistake you made. The other one is just calling yourself a mistake. And that one is not productive. That has shame attached to it. And whenever there's shame, it's hard to do anything with that because it's this elusive blanket over everything. If there's shame attached, then it doesn't matter what you do. You're just always going to be guilty because you're always going to be a failure. You could try 1,000,000 times, but you're always going to get it wrong because you're a failure. Do you see what I mean? So I'm not talking about when you've legitimately made a mistake that you need to own. Okay, feel guilty for that, feel bad for that. But this is the way to know is what exactly am I guilty of? Did you make a mistake? Then own it, apologize, repent, or make it right with the person that you've faulted. Do that for sure. But if you just feel guilty for being awful, then there's shame there. There's shame, and that's not helpful. Your brain has decided that, and you can change your mind. So guilt can be productive if you can identify it. Here's another tool that helped Rebecca. Instead of feeling guilty for asking for help, instead of feeling like a failure for asking her mom to watch the kids, or for asking her husband to take on the activities for one night, she asked a friend, her child and his friend were on a soccer team together, and she asked the friend's mom if he would pick up her child and take him to and from soccer on Wednesdays. Hey, instead of feeling guilty for that, like, who am I to ask for help? I shouldn't be asking for help. I shouldn't be burdening anyone. Instead of doing that, instead of feeling guilty, why not be thankful? Why not say, you know what? We are modeling this. I want to change this in our communities. I want to model that we reach out, that we help each other. I'm willing to go first. If that's what it takes, I'm going to show up somewhere with a freezer meal and say, here you go. Just want to bless you with supper. Here's a frozen lasagna. At the same time, would you be willing to reach out and say, hey, you know what? I got nothing. I have no plan for supper and my kids have had meltdowns all day. Do you got something in your freezer? Do you have a casserole? Do you have a frozen lasagna? Can you be that first one to model it? Could you do that? Could you reach out to your mother and say, hey, Mom, you know what? It would be so wonderful if you would come over and just help me fold laundry once a week because I hate laundry and there's always so much of it. If you could just come and do that with me, that would be wonderful. Or Mom or Dad or aunt or friend or neighbor, could you watch my kids so I could, go and exercise or go for a walk? Or could I just get out of the house for a couple of hours? And, if the kids will be asleep, you just have to sit here and I'm just going to get out for a bit. Maybe I'm going to have a workout. Like, could you do that without feeling guilty? Instead, could you choose to be thankful? Feeling guilty is all about us. It's all about us and what we're not doing and what we're failing at and what's wrong with us. Feeling thankful is all about the other person. If you go to your neighbor who's watching your kid for you and you're like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to burden you. Oh, this is so hard. I feel so guilty. It's all about you. But if you go to that neighbor and say, thank you so much. You have no idea what this does for me. This is just what I need. It rejuvenates me. I feel like I could take on the world again. I can be there for my kids. Man, how can I repay this for you? I want you to have this same feeling. What can I do to help you? I'm just so grateful. That's different. You're still honoring the other person. This time it's all about them. So Rebecca, not in just half an hour, mind you, but Rebecca learned these tools. She practiced them. We dealt with all the negative thoughts that came up along the way. And she's got a rhythm. It's not 100% perfect. Still, those negative thoughts creep up, but she's practicing. She's working on taking those thoughts captive. She's renewing her mind. She's able to change her mind about some of those thoughts that felt 100% true to her before. Now she's able to say, you know what? I'm going to choose something different. It doesn't have to mean that in my life. And I'm not last. I'm not the center of the universe, but I'm not the bottom either. She's found a good rhythm for her life, and I want that for you. I hope this was helpful. Reach out at any time. You know, I'm a huge fan of private coaching. I don't think Rebecca would have been able to do this on her own. I don't know that she could have. I don't know that she was able to see the things. We all have blind spots. Every one of us. I have a coach. We all have that. I don't think Rebecca could have gotten there. If you want to change your thoughts, if you want to decide something different and get rid of guilt and shame, reach out. Let's have a private coaching session.
Families Matter Most with Jen Dean, part of the Saskatchewan Podcast Network.